Most recipes were predicting not even a single picobarn. When you get down to the picobarn level, if you have your beam running constantly, you might be able to produce one single atom a week, which you might not even detect. And you're out hundreds of thousands of dollars. Once you go below a picobarn, you'd be lucky to get even a single atom for an entire month's worth of beam time. And that's why Robert's recipe was so controversial. His paper argued that his recipe could give you 670 picobarns. If he was right, it would be a game changer. Not everyone was convinced, but the nice thing was that this recipe was low risk with a potentially high reward, and they needed a calibration test for the new machine anyway, so why not use Robert's magical recipe? No one was expecting an immediate breakthrough, and yet that's essentially what they got. The experiment began on April 8th of 1999. Most of the lab had left for Easter break. The one exception was Ninov, who stayed behind to analyze the results. 11 days later, the lab director, Darlene Hoffman, would get a phone call. Her first instinct was that it would be bad news. It had only been 11 days. Ken Gregorich assured her that it was quite the opposite. Darlene had every reason to assume the worst. Chemistry in the 40s was not a job intended for women. Darlene Hoffman had to wade through years of systemic discrimination to help change that. When her father passed away suddenly, she asked a professor if she could miss tomorrow's quantum chemistry test to plan the funeral. The professor made her do the test on the spot instead. This was, to use the industry term, horse shit. She wrote it with tears in her eyes. She still got a B. She persevered and finally got hired as a nuclear chemist at Los Alamos. But when she got there, she was told that women weren't hired to work in that division. While HR sat on their ass pretending to do anything, Darlene found her soon-to-be supervisor at a party who immediately fixed the situation. And then her security clearance magically went missing. Wow, that's weird. It took 3 more months before Darlene got access to the lab, and she had just narrowly missed out on what could have been a career highlight. Remember that atomic bomb that the fighter jets flew through? They went to Los Alamos, and because of bureaucratic nonsense, she missed out on being part of the team who discovered elements 99 and 100. A loss that filled her with rage that she funneled into her work. And now, as she entered her 70s, she was beloved by nearly every chemist that she came into contact with. And she was in charge of Berkeley's element hunting team. So yes, she wanted an element. She wanted it a lot. Just a few minutes after the phone call, Gregorich, a visiting professor named Walter Loveland, and Viktor Ninov had come to her office. Ninov had found something incredible in the early results. Notably, Ninov didn't want to show Darlene the results at first, but he was outvoted because why wouldn't you? To better illustrate what he had observed, Ninov drew his colleagues this diagram. Picture-perfect alpha decay chains that ended in element 106. If this was legit, the team had found not just 118, but 116 and 114 as well.